So, can I have you say and spell your name, please?
Beto, B-E-T-O, Altamirano, A-L-T-A-M-I-R-A-N-O.
And your position?
I am a co-founder and CEO of a tech company, but today I'm a candidate for mayor of San Antonio.
That's right. So you just announced less than an hour ago, this is your first interview. What do you want to tell San Antonio about you?
That's right. It's been a busy morning. It's been exciting. The pour of support, from the community has been outstanding. And what I want to tell San Antonio is, I know San Antonio is hungry for a new vision forward. This city has given me so much opportunity. This is where I started my tech company. We started with 3 people. Today we're more than 80 people in my company, a cybersecurity firm, which is one of the major industries of San Antonio. This is where I started also a nonprofit that services and support STEM education for young people in San Antonio. This is where I started my family and found lifelong friends. But that opportunity sometimes seems out of reach for many. And I want to give back to the community of San Antonio. I want people to aspire, to dream big. But in the process, we got to take care of the basics: infrastructure, public safety, economic development. But it's about taking care of the basics with an eye towards the future. And that's the vision forward for the campaign.
Okay. What do you think sets you apart as a candidate? So far what we've seen is council members coming in. Orlando Popoulos has kind of soft launched. They all have some sort of political experience. You're coming from the tech and business world. What sets you apart?
Well, look, Garrett, what a lot of people don't know is that my background is mostly in politics. Mm-hmm. When I was 17, my father was deported, and that impacted me in many ways. But it pushed me to get involved in politics at a young age. I went on to organize politically local, state, and even federal campaigns when I was 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. From there, I went on to work at the Texas House of Representatives, working for Joe Farias out of District 118 of San Antonio. I also worked at the USTR, which is at the White House, under Ambassador Ron Kirk, and the U.S. Senate under Senator John Kerry. And I spent 2 years working at the Alamo Area MPO here in San Antonio, which is a metropolitan planning organization, understanding the transportation policy and issues that we face as a region. My background has been always government. It has been politics. It has been public service. And when I started my tech company, it was to solve some of the biggest issues that we face in our community, which are related to infrastructure. And I set out to launch 311SA, which is a product that is utilized widely here in the city of San Antonio. Thousands of people use the product. So if you look at my background, my career, my track record has always been about giving back. It's been about public service, and it's been about how we can improve government.
Well, you bring up 311, that can be a good or bad thing depending on who you're asking. But in any case, you talked about a vision for the future. What is that vision? You touched on, public safety, infrastructure, but these are things I think I've heard from every candidate in every election I've ever covered. So, what is this vision that you think is different?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, as an entrepreneur, I bring a set of skills. As a small business owner, I know the pains of making payroll, of sacrificing my own salary to take care of my employees, of setting the tone and setting a vision forward. I think as an entrepreneur, I bring the skills of building the right team, going after the right projects, the funding, talking about a vision that involves and invites the community of San Antonio. And when I think about the ideas and challenges that we're facing, let's talk about economic development, for example. There's 3 areas that I want to focus on, which is adaptation and collaboration in the region. Acting as San Antonio, but also looking at the South Texas Triangle and the strengths that we have in our economy of South Texas Triangle, and also collaborate with North Mexico because of the nearshoring momentum that we are achieving here in the north part of Mexico and also South Texas. So we want to bring jobs to San Antonio, but in order to do that, besides the collaboration adaptation, we must reskill and upskill our workforce of San Antonio. So I'm hyper-focused on how we embrace Industry 4.0, or what we call the modern economy, which is highly dependent on critical thinking and analytical thinking jobs. We must be ready, and we must invest in our youth. In the process, we can't just train our community if the jobs are not there. So we must attract emerging enterprises to San Antonio. There's two areas, cybersecurity and biotech. 17,000 of 55,000 information technologists in San Antonio already work in cybersecurity. 1 in 6 individuals already work in bioscience. Let's look at those emerging trends in our economy. Let's invest in those trends. Let's bring those companies to San Antonio. But also quality of life. So when I talk about infrastructure, I talk about complete streets, walkable, bikeable communities. Young people and people of all ages want to have a good quality of life. And I think that's what makes us unique. And so that's why it's important to invest in our infrastructure. But we cannot forget about the energy issue that we're going to face as there's more demand for technology companies or more servers that we must support in the process. So making sure that CPS is running correctly must be a priority. SOS, the water supply. When we look at what we've done, we've been creative. But the Vista Ridge pipeline is not the only outcome in this process. We need to get creative. The Edwards Aquifer is our main source of water. But let's get creative with water innovation. And let's not forget the digital divide, which is alive. More than 20% of households, approximately, in San Antonio don't have access to the internet. And that's a big challenge, because when I talk about economic development and reskilling and upskilling, internet should be a priority and a focus for San Antonio. And we must work hard. We've made some progress, but we must work hard. When we talk about public safety, we've seen the stories on the media. You've covered those stories about gun violence, what is happening in San Antonio. We cannot let that happen. And the young families that are moving to San Antonio or deciding to stay in San Antonio, build their families here, experiencing petty crime. Homicides are down, but petty crime is up. But the root cause of this is opportunity. The challenge that I see is that 20% of San Antonians are experiencing poverty. And that's why you have that type of petty crime going on. So it goes back to jobs, it goes back to economic development. So that's the trifecta, that's the vision. But I would say that as an outsider, political outsider, in terms of not being a city hall insider, that gives me a perspective of the times. Because today we're facing those generational challenges that require generational change.
And just to jump on the when you're talking about murders are down, they're down from a close to high. They're still pretty high historically.
Yeah, true.
But you've also touched on reskilling workers.
Yeah.
The next mayor is going to inherit the Ready to Work program. Where do you stand on that?
I'm supportive of Ready to Work SA, but I think it has a lot of work to be done, right? We can evolve that program. We need to take care of basic trade jobs in the region. Trade jobs are not going to disappear. They're not going to go anywhere. My father, he's an HVAC mechanic. I know those type of jobs are not going to disappear. And it's important that we get young people excited about those jobs. I recently saw an article, I think in the Wall Street Journal, that published that Gen Z, the Generation Z, is getting excited about trade jobs. And that's good for economy. However, as the landscape of the future of work changes and AI takes over some of those jobs, it's not about competing with AI. It's about leveraging AI to create new jobs and new opportunities. So when I think about the skills, people here in San Antonio, we must specialize. And when I talk about specializing, analytical and critical thinking are skills that we must focus on to embrace the Industry 4.0, or what they call the Industrial Fourth Revolution, the modern economy. But people specialize in governments and economic development organization should be focused in diversifying those skills in the form of outputs, products, goods, services. And so we're Ready to Work SA needs to capture that momentum moving forward. So I want Ready to Work SA to evolve and to also focus on the Industry 4.0 type of jobs.
What made you want to run for mayor?
Again, look, my background has been mostly in government, public service, in giving back to my community. I don't consider myself just an entrepreneur. I'm a social impact entrepreneur. And my business has been a social impact business. But I think this community has given me a lot of opportunity. And that's the same opportunity I want to give back to San Antonio. Today, we are facing many challenges, right? And I spoke about them already. And I think we need to get creative. And I think my vision for San Antonio can be one that it's about the story of us. It's not about the candidate. I can't do this alone. We need to moderate and engage the community of San Antonio to understand what we truly are facing as a community. And I feel today we have a system that was not designed for the working class. And the pettiness of some in our city hall politics have deterred us away from the North Star and the vision of what City Hall should achieve. And that's taking care of the basics, taking care of the potholes, the trash can, taking care of building an ecosystem that is conducive for proper economic development with jobs. And sometimes we get too caught up in the politics. And I'm not a politician, I'm an entrepreneur. I get things done. When I saw that it was hard to get in contact with government to report this type of issues, I set out to do it myself. I started a tech company that solved that issue. So my belief is rooted in what I call transformational pragmatism. And that's the same vision that I want to bring forward if elected mayor.
From talking with some political insiders, it sounds like you've been making the rounds for a while now in advance of this campaign launch. Can you tell me how long have you been kind of working towards a mayoral campaign, and what did you do to get ready for it?
I think it started with listening. I've been listening to people. I've been spending time in the community, from the west side of San Antonio to the east side of San Antonio, the south side of San Antonio, north side of San Antonio. I've been spending time with people. In the end, leadership matters because leadership is about people. And so listening to people's concerns and ideas for San Antonio has made me excited about the possibility of running for mayor. But it's been almost a year where I went out there to the community to explore the idea, but being intentional, but more than anything, learning about people's concerns. Before that, a lot of people approached me and motivated me about the idea of running for mayor. And I think in the process, I fell in love with the idea of giving back to San Antonio. As the more I heard from the community, the more I was able to shape a theory of change for San Antonio, which I just talked to you about, right? The issues, the ideas that I have if elected mayor. But it started with listening. And so it's been almost a year of me in the community, paying attention to what people have to say and taking notes and coming up with a plan of action.
Okay. This election is on the other side of an election that's drawing a whole lot more attention. Presidential election. One nominee who was just convicted yesterday, adding a whole lot of intrigue.
I saw that.
But how do you get your message across when most of the city, I would dare say, is focused more on the presidential election than who's going to be mayor next year?
Yeah, great question. And look, I still have a lot of faith in our democracy. And I think change starts at the local level. At the local level, you can truly enact change. At the local level, you have that proximity with your city officials. You can pick up the phone and call your council member. You can go to a rally, a town hall, and engage with the mayor. And I think that's powerful. So it's telling that story to the community of San Antonio, to have faith in their local politics. But in the process, it's not about the politician or the candidate to go out there in the community and tell the community what their plan is without consulting the community first. So what we plan to do in the next few months is to go out there on a listening tour, to pay attention to what people have to say. I've done it on my own, but now I'm doing it with a campaign. And as a public involvement specialist working for the NPO 2 years, I learned that you need to involve people in the public policy making process. And that's what we aim to do in the next 4, 5, 6 months. And then put a plan of action so that we can better serve the citizens and residents of San Antonio.
What do you think is going to be your biggest challenge in this campaign?
Look, it's no secret that I'm not a City Hall insider, but I want to leverage that to my advantage. I think people are tired of City Hall politics. People want a fresh perspective, and it's fair. I think what we have accomplished in San Antonio so far is great. And I know there's good people at City Hall with a good heart and that are devoted to giving back to their communities and sacrifice a lot, by the way, from salary to time, spending time with their families to go out there and do the work. But I think bringing a new perspective matters. And I think people are craving that. Today, City Hall is unpopular, right? And so while I know that I don't have the City Hall political experience, I bring an array of experiences in politics and government of more than 15 years, plus being a business leader. And I think that's what's going to get people excited. So yes, I think that's going to be my biggest challenge, not having that name recognition of being a City Hall insider, but I will leverage that to my advantage. I don't think age is going to be an issue, because when you think about previous mayors, you have Julian Castro, who got elected before 35. You had Ed Garza and Henry Cisneros, who got elected before age 35. So I think age, the average age in Texas actually is like 34, you know? So I don't see that as a challenge. I see that as an advantage, so that I can better represent, you know, the interests of people, have that energy out there, roll up my sleeves. I'm not gonna stop working. I'm gonna work 24/7 on this campaign. It's almost like building a startup, right? And I've done that before, so I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, we're going to have an event tomorrow, Saturday at 10:30. It's going to be the official announcement. We have over 400 people already RSVP, and it's exciting to see so many people interested in what we have to say in this campaign. We also launched our video today, so if people want to learn more, betoformayor.com.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Garrett.
As a San Antonio, where are you from originally?
So I'm from Mission, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a South Texan, yeah, from Mission, Texas.
What brought you to San Antonio?
San Antonio, well, I'm
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at San Antonio is the capital of South Texas. That's how I see it, right? Growing up, I spent a lot of times, you know, visiting San Antonio every summer. You know, I did summer camps here. I did the SeaWorld summer camp. I did the St. Mary's summer camp. You know, my parents were obsessed with San Antonio, and I failed to appreciate and love the city. And it's a city where I describe it as the confluence of the Americas, right? It's a city where a diverse set of ethnicities, cultures, backgrounds have come together to drive the city forward. And I think that's the same spirit that gets me motivated about living and building here in San Antonio. So as soon as I graduated from UT Austin, I moved to San Antonio almost 11 years ago, right? And so while I'm not a native of the city, I see San Antonio as home, and I'm a South Texan. I'm forever going to be a South Texan. And you know, about 3 years ago, I graduated from my mid-career master's in public administration from Harvard. And a lot of my friends, my peers, moved to New York and, you know, all other big cities. And I moved back to San Antonio, moved back to South Texas. Because no matter where I go in life, I'm always going to be a South Texan. So why not spend time building and impacting the region where I'm from?
You also mentioned, I want to touch on this real quick, you mentioned your pop was deported at 17. Have you been able to sort out, I guess, his immigration issues? Is he back here now, or is he still in Mexico?
My father's back in the U.S. after 12 years without his visa. He acknowledges that he procrastinated and he didn't get his paperwork in order. My mother's an American citizen. His children were born in the U.S. You know, it happens, right? But he did it the right way. And he acknowledges that he should have gotten his paperwork in order, right? So he doesn't blame the system, no? He doesn't do any of that, right? He acknowledges that he did wrong. But he also acknowledges, right, that the process is lengthy and complicated, right? For good people that are impacting their communities. And so, you know, of course, that's what got me interested in politics, immigration policy. And we have a lot of work to be done when it comes to immigration policy. But that's where he stands in regard to his experience.
I was going to say, I mean, though it's not a city issue, immigration is big on the minds of many San Antonians, especially with the, you know, the Migrant Resource Center. A lot of people coming through the city. How how does your own personal experience play into how you approach that issue?
Look, again, immigration policy impacted my family directly. I have that experience. I also grew up in the border, and I understand the challenges that are happening at the border. And so we need to protect our border. We have to. But we also have to be conscious of those people that are here in the United States, like dreamers, for example, who have not had the opportunity to get their paperwork in order. We need to reform our immigration policies so that we can better serve those residents, people in the United States that are impacting our country in a positive way. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we must protect our border. I'm from the border. I've seen it firsthand.
Okay. I guess what role does the city have in immigration policy? Because that's another big question there that's been prominent in City Hall right now, because we have the Migrant Resource Center,
Yeah.
but it's almost completely funded with federal funds, or actually is completely funded with federal funds at this point. But there are some wonder, is this our place to be getting into it as city government? You know, what do you think the city's role is within the immigration issue?
Yeah, look, I mean, city leaders dictate the momentum, right, on the dialogue, right? I think city leaders need to be curious about the issues that we're facing at the border, right? But we must, as city leaders, collaborate with the state and federal government. And so that's where I see the opportunity, right, for the city mayor, the city council, to dictate momentum there. Now, when we have refugees in town, we got to be proactive. They cannot be roaming around the streets of San Antonio. So having a center and protecting them is fair, 110%. We cannot let them be out there in the community just roaming around and facing challenges, you know, because they have no place to sleep, right? And so that's the human side of me. I'm all about protecting the border, and we need to double down on protecting the border. We cannot let gang-related activities trespass the border to the United States. But when you already have refugees here in San Antonio or South Texas, we need to look out for them, right? These are human lives. These are children, families. But we also need to be fiscally responsible and proactive in how that looks. And so I think, you know, city leaders need to lead the conversation, but this is a state and federal issue. More than anything, it's a federal issue. But city leaders need to have the difficult conversation and bring people to the table, like state representatives, congressional leaders, even the governor, right? And city leaders need to have a voice in the process as well.
As a final question, what do you think is the biggest issue facing San Antonio today?
The biggest issue that San Antonio is facing is poverty. 20% of San Antonians live in poverty. That's more than approximately 250,000 people. That is the biggest issue that we are facing. From the issue of poverty, you get the collateral of the crime activity. You get the broken window theory, which is a lack of aspiration from the community because the conditions are not there for them to succeed. And so that is the biggest issue that I see that we are facing collectively as a community. And we must tackle that issue head on. And it's gonna take a lot of work, but we must create and launch smart policies and sensible plans, right, that set the conditions for our schools, for our businesses, and for our people to succeed. If we cannot do that, then it's gonna be really hard for us to tackle the issue of poverty head on.
Okay.
One last question I had.
Kenny, you made a liar out of me.
Where do you stand if you become mayor as for the arena for the Spurs and stuff like that?
Hey, look, quality of life. When I talk to that's a great question. When I talk to young people, the issue of quality of life comes up. Young people need to see themselves as part of San Antonio's story. Entertainment and sports play a critical role. And when we want to retain talent or welcome talent to San Antonio, opportunities like having a Spurs arena in downtown that is walkable, bikeable, and you have a sports district, you know, with restaurants and bars that are locally owned, hopefully, gets people excited. I'm all in. I love the idea. However, here's the thing, right? We had that effort in the east side, right? The Frost Arena. And a lot of promises were made in the process. And so how do we keep those promises? How do we keep hope alive in the east side? That's my question. Not only do we have to do more diligence in the process, but we have to be intentional in how we keep those promises for those communities that we went into, developed, and now we're living. So that's just my concern. But I'm all in for having an arena downtown. It's exciting, right? I mean, people want that. And I've been talking to people across the city, and it's usually a positive note from people when that conversation is brought up. Funding is also an issue, right? How does that look like? What are the vehicles that are going to be utilized to fund this effort downtown? So it's about asking the right questions, being intentional, but also exploring, how those promises that were made to the east side of San Antonio are not going to be broken.
So if you're all in, does that mean you're okay with public funding, part or all of the arena?
So I still need to look into it, right? I don't have a response in this moment.
Okay.
I need to talk to more people. I need to do my diligence. As I mentioned, we need to be intentional and due diligence, and that's what I plan to do on this campaign trail. So if elected mayor, I'm going to make the best decision that services the community of San Antonio, but in the process, I'm going to consult with the community first, with people, with experts, and come to a decision that actually services San Antonio and does not put us in a difficult situation in the long term.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.